I suppose you link out there, John. Yeah, so we have, like, we're live streaming right now, so watch what you say. It's not being recorded, but.
Well, the good thing is they can't read your lips.
That's a very good point. If we are, I need to turn this down because it's a few seconds behind. My grandfather, we were all, you know, all his surviving kids were there, and I was 22 grandchildren, I think 15 of us were there. But he waited, we had to leave the room for something.
That's when he went.
I just laughed because that was him. Please leave me alone. You know?
Were you thinking your dad passed away?
I was there. Honestly, I wish I could have been there. It was very emotional. My sister wasn't there. My sister Jill was actually in Jamaica. She had just flown to Jamaica. And so we were able to FaceTime her, and she was able to, say her goodbyes. But I still,
Was he in hospice at that point?
No.
Or he was at home?
no, it was up in the hospital. Yeah. It was not pretty. But I was glad,
Yeah, when they're taking those last breaths, it's they're not choking, but.
it was hard. It was very hard. And it was just,
Right, so.
Grandpa's coming on at dinner
Here's the
time.
thing, and of course, the homeowner.
I got to have it working at work, but it's totally lost after a couple months, and then around the days and.
Exterior, the deduction, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's $5,000.
But general.
They knew there was.
Yeah, it's still on. I
I
think
know,
we're
I
waiting.
know this is general hospital.
I muted it.
It's free. So they knew that there was something happened there. Okay.
Call to order this special meeting of the Huron City Schools Board of Education, November 11th, 2020. Randy, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mrs. Mast.
Here.
Mr. Slocum.
Here.
Mr. Ward.
Here.
Mrs. Green.
Here. Would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the agenda for this afternoon.
So moved.
Thank you, Jody and John. Randy?
Mrs. Mast,
Yes.
Mr. Ward,
Yes.
Mr. Slocum,
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mrs. Green.
Yes. Okay, we'll turn it over to Denny.
Okay, well, thank you, board members and those in the public for attending this special meeting. When we began discussions and planning for the start of the 2021 school year, we committed in our restart plan that we would continuously review the plan, the learning models, and that's what we're doing. Obviously, with the unpredictability of the pandemic, and having a guiding principle of reviewing, again, that's why we're here. And we, again, committed that we would modify as needed, when circumstances dictated. So, again, that sets the premise to why we are here this afternoon. We are nearing the completion of our 11th week of school since August 31st. When we started the school year, no different than we are now. We still have 3 options. In August, the board decided to go with a hybrid model, which would be what we would consider on a continuum, the middle, if you will. And we said at that time we could easily pivot to the left, which would be a full remote if circumstances dictated, or pivot to the right to a full return 5 days if circumstances dictated. Well, those are the 3 options that remain on the table right now. Obviously, we're living the hybrid. We are hearing from families where the hybrid is working for them. It meets their needs, but we're also hearing from families where the hybrid is not meeting their needs. And we've heard very compelling and very reasonable reasons to why or why not the hybrid is being successful for children. Needless to say, this is an emotional decision. People are invested in this decision because of children are involved. So what I stress that we do is we use an evidence-based process. We block out the noise when we re-examine the learning model that best meets the needs for all children, because that's our responsibility, all children. So with that evidence-based framework that I continuously refer back to, that allows us to make the most informed decision possible. Again, blocking out the noise, blocking out the emotion that is tied to this decision that, quite frankly, all of us have to make. We all hold a great responsibility sitting here. Because again, we represent all children of Huron, not just pockets of children, all children. So what I want to do is review with you that evidence-based process that we look at, that I'm asking you to look at when we examine the decision or teaching a learning model that we're going to either pivot to, remain the same, or something else comes up. So with that, if you just bear with me, I'll talk with you some key data points that we need to look at when we take this decision at hand. First of all, the community and county spread, the infection rates. It's no secret that things are more than trending up. To say there's an uptick, that's probably slighting it a bit. Cases across our county, our region, are mirroring what's happening across the country. Cases still are being attributed to general spread, household, again, not attributed to the long-term care facilities as was what was reported over the summer, the last time that we saw an uptick or a trending of more cases. A second key data point that we should look at would be the confirmed cases that are impacting Huron City schools. To date, we have had 13 probable or confirmed student positive cases since August 31st. We have had 2 confirmed, probable or confirmed adult cases since August 31st. One was a non-faculty member, lay coach, and recently we had a teacher at Woodlands who was confirmed positive. From my conversations with the Erie County Health Department, It appears that all of the cases that have impacted us, those 15 that I just mentioned, cannot be attributed or related to a Huron City Schools activity or event. In other words, they're coming in from the outside. Now, the impact of those cases is we've had probably, and this is changing daily, last count was approximately 50 quarantines because of contact tracing. But again, that number is very fluid right now. But again, keep in mind, we've had 13 probable or confirmed student cases since the 31st of August and 2 adult cases. Recommendations of the local health experts, those who are charged with managing an infectious disease. Regional health commissioners across the state of Ohio agree that most cases, again, are what we're experiencing, are coming from outside of the school districts. They are commenting that schools are safe. Schools are able to, what it looks like from across the state, data-wise, are able to implement mitigation practices to keep the disease, the virus, from spreading in the school. Those mitigation practices are obviously wearing face covering, sanitizing, disinfecting, washing hands, physical distancing, symptoms assessments, etc. So again, that's what we have as far as our regional health recommendations. Currently, all Erie County districts are on a 5-day return. The most recent, we had Margaretta went back 2 weeks ago, possibly. I talked to yesterday Edison, Sandusky, Perkins, and Margaretta yesterday, their superintendents. I talked to Vermillion today, getting an idea of what's happening. According to those folks and the local health experts, there's really no difference in case numbers between those who have been back 5 days. Keep in mind, Perkins, St. Mary's Central Catholic, our own St. Peter's School have all been back since August. Sandusky, Vermillion, and Margaretta just returned to 5 days within the last 2 to 3 weeks. According to the health experts, our numbers are running about the same. For example, this is last week, now everything's reported in the rears. Huron City Schools, we had 1 positive case last week reported. Sandusky City Schools, Vermillion and Margaretta had 1 apiece. Sandusky City Schools, Vermillion had 1, along with Huron. Margaretta had 2. Perkins, SMCC, and St. Pete's had 0 reporting, according to the Sandusky Register. And those are all districts that are, or institutions that are going back 5 days. Challenges that we're facing, though, when I talk to my colleagues, finding substitutes, because as the numbers go up, more faculty, staff, and students are getting sucked into the quarantine. There's to a point, I know a neighboring district had to close a building for the next 2 weeks because of staff that have gone down. We've experienced it on the hybrid. Dr. McDonald, Mrs. Charville, Mrs. Zilski have all covered as substitutes. So we're not immune to that even with the hybrid. And I can share with you, regardless of what we do, it would be a strong assumption that we could get to the point where we don't have enough subs, whether we're hybrid or whether we are going to be full return. That's just the nature of what public schools are dealing with right now. So that's what's happening with area school districts. When I find the most compelling data, being an educator, a practitioner of education, since March 16th, when schools were closed, shut down for on-site education, it's been 35 weeks ago at the end of this week, 7.5 months. Huron City School students have been in school face-to-face, receiving that face-to-face education, receiving those face-to-face counseling services, those social, emotional, mental health services face-to-face, less than 25 days, inconsistently 25 days. As an educator and a practitioner, that's problematic to me. Putting all the health stuff aside, as a lifelong educator, that's problematic. And I feel that our kids, the research tells you, there's going to be learning gaps. Those gaps will be perpetuated because of inequities, talking about our socially and economically disadvantaged families, our special ed children, our minority children. We have families in our community that have varying resources allocated for them to where they can manage this. I'm not saying that there's not a place for remote, not a place for what we're doing right now, but we have to factor in the impact that this is going to have with our kids not being in front, because there is no substitute for being in front of a highly qualified Huron educational expert. There just isn't. We know that. So that's the most compelling data that strikes me when I run the numbers of what our kids are exposed to right now. Now, what I want to share with you now is the full remote, because if you would have asked me 3 months ago, probably a full remote would not have been something on the table. At this point, with the unpredictability, I don't know. The governor has a speech today. What is he going to pull? What will he talk? What will he pull out and share with us? I really don't know. Again, there is a possibility, whether we're hybrid, whether we are full return, that we could easily run into a situation where a building is closed and full remote. We did okay last spring, but we know we can do better. And we have a plan to do better. But also looking with that full remote option, because we've all heard from our parents where the hybrid or the lack of consistency 5 days is not working for them. We think we can do better for those folks. If we have a full 5-day return, that full 5 day may not be what some parents want. We've heard from parents who are not comfortable sending their kids back. Very reasonable and rational thought. We also know the limitations of the Huron Virtual Academy. The asynchronous model doesn't meet the needs for everybody. So if we would come back, or when we come back 5 days, we've created a middle lane for those families who aren't quite ready, but still want that full engagement, the synchronous model, that face-to-face interaction with their teachers, which would be a full remote model, a synchronous model for those families who aren't quite prepared. At this time, I'd like to ask Mrs. Charville and Dr. McDonald, Mrs. Charville is not with you, to demonstrate what the remote model would look like. But keep full remote district, or if we're back 5 days and we offer those families who are not comfortable returning a remote option, a synchronous option. Okay? Julie, should you kill the lights?
Probably. Taking just a second to come off. There we go. Thank you. All right. Elliot is playing the role of the student today. You have your mic off? I have to turn my mic off. Okay, so as the teacher, I get to play the teacher. With students coming in my classroom, they'll come in, they're muted. So this is our Zoom platform, which we purchased all of our educators an account, a little more substantial than the free account that was given out in the spring. But through our A site, we got everybody this account. And how are you doing, Mrs. Charville? So you'll notice Mrs. Charville is in a conducive area for learning. So she's got a clean desk, right? Got a clean desk? Okay. Her distractions are minimized, and she has headphones on. So the headphones part, we're going to ask students to wear because it doesn't broadcast the classroom throughout the residence if the student is at home, because that can too be a distraction for other learners in the household. As well, because there's a jacket, and Holly's hearing this and she's muted, we're not piping the household sound back into the classroom. So it's kind of a little bit of a two-way street there. So puts her in school mode. She's got her school appropriate attire on. We're going to ask that kids would still follow the handbook for school attire. She's got an appropriate background. If students want to turn off their cameras, there's times and places that they'll be able to do so. And she has herself named appropriately as Holly Charville. So no funny stuff there. There might be a time to get cute and creative or something, but this is how they would enter the classroom. So the teacher would do some sort of opening activity and take attendance. So with our blended policies that we file with the state, we still are under attendance rules, if you will. So the secondary is going to still have to take period attendance, and then the elementaries would take that morning and afternoon attendance. So if the student is sick,
they would still let the office know that the teacher could not expect us to see through on the show. And we got it all there. So, as the teacher, I can be on the camera and instructing. You can see, Holly will have a full view of me unless she's in gallery view. If it was gallery view, you guys have seen all the hamburger, the Brady Bunch looking things. Okay, so the teacher can also manipulate that as well. All right. So here's where the teacher can also, let's go. So, we purchased these document cameras, arrived yesterday, I guess? Yesterday, with the tripods. They are web cameras, actually, is what they are, but through Zoom, we can turn it into a doc camera. So a teacher can demonstrate, and we'll probably do a better camera placement than what I have here. Okay. And Holly can see that and participate. So Holly can participate in a number of ways. I could, she can raise her hand. She can go in the chat feature that, just type in the question. And there's also a feature where literally she clicks a button, it says raise hand. So, to get the teacher's attention that way. So. Which is 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay. Let's stop sharing. Okay. Do a different share, just on a basic level. This turns my whole screen into a whiteboard. So the teacher can write on it, text, draw, stamp. These can become math counters, for littles, things like that. And we were messing around with it earlier today where Holly could draw on there and I could clear her stuff as well. So we'll clear it all. Okay. The other thing down here is this feature called breakout rooms. So I do a breakout room where I create it. If I had a class of 20 kids, I could create 5 rooms, 4 kids to a room, and they would go in there with an assignment and work on what that assignment looks like. And then to bring them all back to the regular, this room, there's a 60-second counter. So, okay, kids, it's 60 seconds to go. Wrap up what you're doing. We're all going to come back together. So this is how we're communicating. This is audio. The other part to the remote feature is our Google Classroom platform. That would coincide with this. All the students' curriculums, programs, whatever is housed in that teacher's classroom. So a student would follow regular schedule. If they see an intervention specialist or they get support services, that schedule they would still follow. So the teacher or intervention specialist would have a link that they would go to and they would get their services just as if we were physically in the building. So that's another positive. Those things can keep on happening. So there shouldn't be a disruption in those services as well. So that is it in a really tight nutshell. Did I forget anything, Mr. Muratori?
No, I think you're spot on. Again, it's new technology for us, and again, we're growing with it. There's going to be, PD that has to be involved with this to a comfort level because we have staff that are doing this already. We actually have a teacher at Woodlands who's on quarantine, and she's teaching from home. We bring a substitute in who sits and monitors the class, but the content specialist is delivering content. And thanks to working with Mr. James and the HEA, we've come to an agreement that will allow staff to teach from home if they're quarantined and they're not symptomatic, obviously. So we're doing this right now. We have teachers that are doing it. I stopped in Mr. Castor's room on Monday, popped in, he was in a Zoom with students, so I had to sneak out. So we're doing multiple levels. Again, the gist of this is, as you've all heard, we have parents that want to come back to school. We have parents that are just not comfortable coming back to school. So how can we meet their needs when the Huron Virtual Academy, the asynchronous, is not what meets their needs? Again, If we can recreate 75% of what's happening in that classroom for those students, that sure is a lot better than leaving those kids at home to their own without having the access to the educational specialist. So again, new technology, new initiative. Will there be bumps in the road? Will we take a step backwards to take 2 steps forward? Absolutely. But we're finding that this is a pretty neat opportunity for us. And at the very least, I mentioned before, we've had 50 children at least on quarantine. My own kids were on quarantine for 2 weeks. I saw that they had very limited, not because of anyone's fault, but 2 weeks without that interaction, consistent interaction. Those quarantine kids are that's gonna be a growing population. And regardless of what model we follow, we need something to address their educational needs. So again, wherever we end up tonight, this is going to be what Julie just shared with you, another tool that we'll have in our toolbox. And quite frankly, beyond COVID, very often we have children with medical needs. And typically we have a tutor or a home instructor aide up to 5 hours a week. Maybe that's not enough. Maybe now that student who's home because they're under treatment for something, maybe they have the chicken pox or what have you, now they could potentially zoom into their class for the entire time they're out. So there's great opportunity here. So we're taking a challenging situation and hopefully we'll be better off as an organization on the other side.
Thank you, Mrs. Charles.
I do have a
Thank
couple.
you, Mrs. Charlotte.
A couple questions, and most of them are just curiosity. So this is taking place during the class, during the regular session, whereas the teacher having to kind of do double the work to prepare for.
No, this is taking live time. So teachers will not, at this point, we feel not going to record their lessons. It's just live
They're not
time.
recording your lessons. Person at home is kind of tapping into that
They'll
class.
tap in. If they're not there, teachers taking attendance, Billy's absent today, and all of the school policy and handbook, those expectations belong. Again, I don't want to oversimplify it by any stretch, but it's another seat in the classroom in a different place. It's a seat outside the window, basically.
All right.
Again, I'm oversimplifying it a bit, but really that's the theory of it.
Yeah, I get that. And there might be occasion, and it seems like it's okay for a student to come in and out of that model based on those needs, or will be easier. Is it gonna be kind of loosey-goosey? Johnny doesn't want to go to class today, but he can.
No, we're gonna ask our parents to commit to this through the 39 weeks. We're approached by the time if we make this, when we launch this, regardless of when we launch it, we're asking that the parents would commit for 9 weeks for this. Because the back and forth, the in and out, it puts a lot of stress on the students, the kids, not only the students who it's impacting, but the kids in the class, puts an undue strain on the teachers. We're asking parents to make a commitment to this. That's why you take some time before you jump into it. Make
But
sure
there would
we
be
should-
occasion if a person does get ill or something, or a person does get a positive test, they would need to be.
Well, like the quarantine
14
students,
days,
yes.
is a perfect scenario for that person
Absolutely.
to stay engaged.
That's a different. Now, if the parents choose this model, say versus a full return, we're asking that they make the commitment. Because again, kids coming back and forth, our principals and our teachers, we have to adjust all the schedules, because if we find one class loses 5 kids to the remote model, and another class doesn't, we may have to move kids around to help us with physical distancing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of moving parts, so that in and out would have a ripple effect. So that's a very good question, though.
And the last question is those headsets, we would provide those headsets that Holly was wearing.
We were gonna ask the parents, correct?
Yeah, and I believe it is already part of the school supply list.
Okay.
They should have
Yeah,
those
it
for
is.
access to. And earbuds come with their devices, so.
Yeah, true. True, I didn't know if those were something special or not. Okay.
No, those are just testing headphones we had sitting on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for the answers.
Okay, so, yeah, we would like
Yeah, just curious, not to be.
comments, questions?
Are the CARES dollars taking care of this, or, obviously,
We are
Yes,
meeting with
go on.
HEF tonight, and they offered we're gonna submit a grant to the HEF And also the Rotary president asked if we would inquire about dollars as well to help underwrite this.
And frankly, these devices are relatively inexpensive. They're considered supplies, are disposable. So, but we are using every bit of, I'm just curious, we pretty much spent our corona relief dollars already for cleaning supplies and Chromebooks. And we got that broadband grant, we bought more Chromebooks and iPads and other devices to help people students get connected. So we are looking at every dollar we have.
So there's still a chance that we won't be able to do this because we don't have money.
We have the equipment, we purchased it already. It's here. It came in Wednesday.
It fell within our supply budget.
Oh, okay, that's a good.
Cameras were about $5,100. We bought every camera a tripod, about 85 cameras, 85 tripods, and we bought X number of microphones for staff. And the microphones are tethered. We found during our stress network test that there's some feedback with the cordless mics. But each camera has a mic built into it. And we tested it up here in the center of the room. You can pick it up pretty good. So, good question.
That's what we're using today, right?
Yeah, it's not the exact same model, but when I tested this camera and microphone, Denny was sitting where Mrs. Mast was and typing on his MacBook, and I could hear the typing. It's not perfect sound, but they're pretty good. I have a little bit higher end one than that, but they're quite cost effective.
Yeah. And they can switch, as Dr. McDonald was using, as a document camera. That's a whole nother camera that we looked at to where you can actually put it down on something flat, kind of like in our day, the old overhead, where you lay it under the overhead, but it's a document camera, and then it will show what's on your tablet on the screen, so multi-purpose.
And I think this is, right now, it addresses potentially where we are now, but potentially where we might have to go down the road. So if somebody has 20 kids in class and 15 say, I want to be in 5 days, the other 5 families say, no, we want them home, they're still at home in class. And the virtual, that same class they were always in,
Correct.
they're just sitting in their home instead of in their seat at school. But depending on what DeWine comes out with or whatever, we still have that option then of a regular class, which we didn't have in March. You know, it was, and no fault of the teachers, but it was like, your assignments are online, have at it, you know, and a lot of the kids struggled with that. So this way they can still have, you know, the option of a real class if, you know, push comes to shove for everybody, which we hope it doesn't, but you never know.
Well, and again, this remote that we're talking about, regardless of what model we walk out of here with, there potentially be a place for it. So, plus, again, another option for parents. And that's, you know, trying to meet the needs of everybody the best we can during unpredictable circumstances.
When could we be ready to go back 5 days and implement this technology for students who are from families not freedom?
Great question. I'll walk you through, I guess, if we could. And I do want to say, I want to give a shout out to our teachers because, well, people are fatigued right now. And we're asking for one more thing. We're asking for one more thing. And we've kind of crammed an awful lot into a short time. And we're stressing our capabilities. But, and again, everyone has stepped up. So I'm going to walk you through a timeline. Mr. Ward's question was if the district would change our learning model. The thought is today, obviously, the 11th special board meeting, present learning models, hybrid 5-day return, or full remote, obviously. Tomorrow, regardless, again, of what we come out of here, I owe it to our staff to be in front of them. I have a virtual staff meeting tomorrow at 7 a.m. Tomorrow evening, I have a virtual community forum. Again, regardless of what we come out of here tonight, One of our guiding principles was frequent communication with our parents, so we're living up to that. If we would move forward with a 5-day return, we are asking families, which will communicate with a deadline, that they communicate with their building principals if they're going to choose the remote option. That allows our principals then to work with the teachers, move schedules around, etc., because there will be changes to schedules with that. The 23rd and the 24th, those are the 2 days before Thanksgiving break. If we would return to a 5-day at some point after Thanksgiving with the remote option, we are asking for professional development to not have we would have students 1 day that week. That's the 24th. We're asking to take those 2 days as professional development to roll out the technology, become familiar with it, become acquainted with how you use it, how it changes lesson plans. We would also take then that Monday we'd come back, which would be a Tiger Monday, and utilize that for continual PD. Again, we're asking an awful lot of our folks. We have folks that are doing this already, but let's be frank, some folks who probably have the tech skills of me right now, which are not great. So we have to bring them up to speed and find that comfort level with this new technology. On Tuesday, 12/1, we would bring just our full remote students only. That allows our teachers to engage with the technology. They follow their schedule, they work through, maybe there are password bugs, maybe there are what could go wrong the first time you try this. So that 12/1 would be just for those remote students, allowing our teachers undistracted to work with those kids. Wednesday, 12/2, we're going to leave the remote kids on their own. We're going to bring back all students. Because remember, we've only been running at half capacity. So this is going to be different for our buildings, because now we're going to have a somewhat fuller class, and we still have all the mitigation strategies we have. So rather than to have our teachers and our support staff worry about the remote kids and having all these kids for the first time, we just want our in-person kids that day. It's kind of a staggered, if you will. And then on Thursday the 3rd, it's everybody from that point on. Although on Monday the 7th, we do have a delayed start that had been scheduled when we adopted the calendar. We'd like to keep that there so we can recalibrate and see, okay, we've been now in school for a week, we've had this, where do we have changes? What do we have to do? So it's a recalibration point. And then it's at that point, with your question, Mr. Ward, everybody's back, we're doing our mitigation practices. We have X number of kids remotely. We still have children who are on the virtual academy, the asynchronous model. So now we've got 3 lanes going. That's a lot. That is a lot for a very, very thin staff in a very small school district. Very small school district. But we're bold and we're going to try it.
Okay, are there any more questions for Denny or Julie?
I don't even know if it will have an impact. Again, it's just a curiosity. Do you think then you'll have some kids in the virtual academy come over to a different model?
I think so.
I would think.
I think so, because I can think of some right now with specific health conditions, and they're younger children. The asynchronous model is not for everybody. That serves a specific niche. Kids that need self-pacing, they need the 24/7 access. They can access curriculum on a Saturday, a Sunday, late at night, or maybe mom and dad are home from work. This model, you don't have that flexibility. When you're in Mrs. Mast class meets at 8:30, you're expected to be there. If not, if you can't, this model isn't for you.
I wonder about like some of the really young kids that may not be able to navigate this or have somebody at home that can help them navigate that. I'm thinking of younger kids that might be, at grandma and grandpa's house or somewhere else that they can't get on at class time. but parents don't want them in school. I don't, I mean, I
That's
wonder
where the
about that.
asynchronous model would be their only other
Yeah.
option.
Yeah, and then I guess my other question would be, just out of curiosity, is there the, I mean, have you heard, is there any talk of teachers who don't want to be back in the classroom 5 days a week, but would rather teach this way? I mean, is that even an option? Or if we go back 4 or 5 days, you're just back?
Teacher, again, any staff member has the medical. If they present medical documentation, any faculty member, bus driver, what have you, they have that, absolutely have that option.
And then my other question is, what if you don't have the numbers of families that want to do the, the Zoom class model, and you have more families than you anticipated wanting to do the 5-day return? How will that affect the schools as far as social distancing, as far as class sizes?
Well, class size numbers will be within our negotiated agreement, but like every school in the state of Ohio, schools were not designed for
Right.
6 feet apart.
Right.
We'll do the best we can.
Okay.
You know, there will be times when kids are, nose to nose, 3 and 4 feet apart. That's a reality. And that's why the other mitigation strategies are so important. So important that the masks are worn all day, with mask breaks built in, that the symptoms assessment at home are critical. The hand washing, the sanitizing, disinfecting, the other strategies, yeah. But we are no different. If we come back, that is something that we'll have to acknowledge. We will not be able to be 6 feet across the board all day in every
We have
situation.
our neighborhood districts around us that are, have already been there, so
They're in the same boat.
we've been watching now.
Even Sandusky, brand new buildings,
So they're not building buildings,
they're 3 feet apart in some places. And is it great? Would we love to be 6 feet? Absolutely, absolutely. But if we want all kids back, we just have to acknowledge it. That it's a great question. It's just not honest. It's not possible.
I guess my last question would just be, I had a conversation last evening with a parent, and she was just wondering, would it be possible, would the Huron City Schools be willing to do some kind of dashboard so parents could see numbers of probables and cases in
Sure.
schools? She found while she appreciates the final forms, she feels there's discrepancy in the numbers and the dates. And if you have a child who might be participating in a sport, you get a different letter because your child is participating in a sport and the numbers are from this date to this date, but if it's Huron City Schools, it's numbers from this date to this date. And she just found it very kind of confusing.
And it is. They're coming and going.
Yeah, and wondered if we could just do a running dashboard, I guess a tally.
Sure.
So you could look really easily on the district website and see where we are.
Absolutely. I turn a dashboard into, I'm required to weekly submit to the Sandusky
That would be great.
Erie County Health Department, where we have cases, student cases, and again, we can do a weekly, or we probably do a total from August 31st. We've had 13 of this, we've had 2 of these.
Yeah, I think it would be
No,
helpful.
absolutely,
Just to
absolutely.
be transparent, to be
Sure.
open, to let people know that this is what's going on.
Yep, I agree. No, absolutely.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Sure. Good question.
John?
You know me, I have the question.
That's okay.
Just out of curiosity, I've had several conversations with parents also. Is there a thought given to the fact that with these holidays coming up and supposedly, that's when things may happen even more so with people traveling in and out, families and all that, that this might be wise to wait until after the first of the year? Is there a reason that we have to start this and then in school 2 weeks and then we're gone for almost 2 weeks anyway? I mean, would it be wise? I guess I'm just throwing that out there too. just see what happens over the holidays. Outside of our realm, I know, but,
If I may, anything's possible, unpredictable. When I asked to pull off the agenda last month, it was because of what we saw.
Right.
What was coming down the pike. So the unpredictability of it, I think that's a reasonable question, but it's unpredictable, very unpredictable. And what's it gonna do? I mean, that's a fair question. What I am pleasantly surprised in hearing experts say that as numbers go up, the numbers in school are not directly correlating with them. They are increasing, of course, not to the rate that we're seeing. And part of the reason why I asked to have this meeting to discuss is because the data point is, and the health experts, again, I'm not a health expert, what I'm continuously hearing is schools are following the mitigation practices and they are working in schools. They are.
I felt during my mouth, sorry.
They are working in schools. Again, numbers are going up, but they are work, those mitigation strategies are working.
The
From
other
the health
thing,
experts.
yeah, the other thing that, I'm really concerned about is, you go back in January and you remember we came out in mid-March. So now you're looking at almost a whole physical year with our kids not in school. It's not acceptable. I just, I don't know how we can ever bring back where we need to be, with this kind of K through 12 right now, missing a whole year. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to get our kids back to where they need to be. And, like Denny said, 25 days is all they've had since St. Patrick's Day. It's academics is, I know, as educators, that's a priority for us. And, we do, have a difficult decision here because of the pandemic. But at the same time, I think that we develop a strategy that might enable this to actually work. And if things do get worse in DeWine or even President Biden or whatever, if things change, we really have another option now that doesn't just send our kids home and, say you're on your own. But I just get concerned. I mean, the time factor is just getting insane of how long they've been out of real school.
I personally agree with that. Back to Mr. Jones's point, again, I stress the word unpredictability here. Again, we could walk out of here and say we're doing something, and in 2 weeks we find we have to close a building because we lose a department, we don't have subs. Again, I think whatever we do, we have to understand the unpredictability. Whether we stay at hybrid and things stay plateaued, or the numbers look like they do, or we decide to come back and something means we have to close the building, or the governor says something, we just have to recognize the unpredictability of this. So that's all I would just like to be on the table right now.
Anybody else have?
You keep talking about a difficult decision. In a way, it's an impossible decision. Impossible in that accommodate every person's concern. We have people that are highly concerned about the pandemic, and appropriately so. People highly concerned about their first grade student at home in a single parent household, and the delivery of the content is compromised. The burden on the family is through the roof. It's unbearable. I've talked to parents too. Some of them are saying they're willing to take the risk of the virus because the burden on their home is so severe. Other parents say, I don't want my kid anywhere near the school that could become a petri dish. So it's an impossible decision to please everyone. With this technology, I think we're coming close. If you are immunocompromised or someone in the home is elderly, we're going to deliver the technology so that you have interaction with a professional educator on a daily basis. If you are comfortable going back to school, we've got in school the best delivery model. We all know of the 3 options: fully remote, hybrid, 5 days a week. What's compelling to me is that we have Huron City Schools, this Board of Education, in the county right now, we have executed the most conservative approach. We are now the only hybrid school. That's quite a compromise, it's quite an investment. We're sacrificing the delivery of content on a daily basis in person. Right now, if I understand the numbers correctly, we don't have a return on that investment. Perkins is back every day and their numbers are not worse than ours. They should be double ours and they're not. That's what's got my attention. And if it wasn't for that, if we had half the numbers or a third of the coronavirus numbers, or Perkins had, or St. Pete's, or even Tiffin Calvert, which I know has been 5 days a week since August, if they had tripled the contracted disease or the spread of disease that we did, then I could say, we've got a return on our investment, we've got healthier students. Right now, I don't see it. We had testimony last week. Mary James came in and she's here, and I'm very concerned about teachers. We've got to protect our teachers. We are charged with educating young people. We're also a very significant employer. And so creating a halo around teachers is critical. If they come in with a statement saying they should not be exposed, no problem, we can account. But I feel like it's time. We've got first graders learning how to read. We've got sophomores trying to get a 30 on the ACT so they can get into West Point. And I think it's time to do the best we can by them.
I think probably at this point, we should just have a motion on the floor and see where everybody falls.
I'd like to make a motion that we affirm, as presented to this board by the superintendent, the November back to 5 days a week schedule.
A second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, does anyone have any other concerns, questions?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have a governor that's making an address at 5:30 this evening. And we have no idea what he's gonna say, what he's going to limit our state to, our county. I don't think we're in any position right now at this meeting to vote on this. I really don't. I personally would be more comfortable waiting until after we hear this address this evening.
Well, the good news is we've got a meeting before this is executed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't know that we'll hear anything tonight from the governor that will change where we think we need to be, but the governor, when he comes out, he could trump us, no doubt.
Oh, that's a very good point. Yeah,
Right.
he says no school then.
But that
This is
trumps us,
moving.
but that,
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of evidence he'll present today that would change our minds, if he was here talking in front of us, what he would share with us.
Yeah,
I think
that
we're
way-
still in position to make a decision, knowing that we could be trumped by a governor at any time. I mean, we're in kind of that position anyhow, aren't we?
Yeah, everything is conditioned or subject to the governor and the state board of education. And the next meeting in a week.
I guess the only, I'm thinking, why not just kind of sit back and wait a little bit, that we've got a little bit, just kind of a timeline, it's kind of aggressive, right? Yeah, the governor can shut us down. He could put out some mandate.
I just feel like
Hasn't
we have a
exactly
big
been
piece of the
yet.
puzzle that could be given to us. I mean, information that is crucial. I don't know what he's gonna talk about. I don't have a hotline to underline, but if he's giving an address at 5:30 in the evening and not giving his normal 2 o'clock address tomorrow, it's not or not. I mean, he's doing it for a reason, to capture a bigger audience.
But I think if we decide that we want to do the 5 days, again, we can pivot if we have to. At this point, we're still hybrid. If we say we want to start 5 days on December 2nd or 3rd or whatever that is, that's 3 weeks away, you know? I mean, we'll just have to switch gears. It's not that we aren't allowed to be flexible. We're just saying at this point, with what we have seen academically, how the other school districts are coming out with cases, whatever, that we feel like we're ready to, make that leap into that, assuming the status quo, that somebody else doesn't tell us we can't do that. And if they do, then Perkins, Edison, Margaret, everybody, they go the same route we do, everybody's gotta shut down. So I don't think it hurts anything for us to say this is the direction that we want to go. I guess you guys all know my father just passed away on Sunday, and his very best friend from high school, from Berlin Heights High School, is still alive as well. And he called my dad a month ago and said his grandson died, and sixth grader got a gun and shot himself. And our kids are suffering the way all the adults are. I just think we need as much normalcy as we can provide for our kids to, help them traverse this pandemic until April or whatever we can get a vaccine or whatever that's going to be. We take risks every day. You get in your car, you take a risk. You eat a Big Mac, you take a risk. You drink alcohol, you take a risk. Life is filled with risk, and I think that we've done everything possible to provide for families that aren't comfortable. They get regular school at home, and for the families that are begging us to come back 5 days, we're providing that option. So for me, I feel like we've done the best that we can possibly do in a bad situation, but of course, you all might think differently, but we've got a motion on the table, so if anybody still has thoughts, let's share them, and then we'll call the vote.
Can I get clarification on the motion, make sure I record this correctly?
That we switched back to 5 days.
Well, but I'm gonna say, Mr. Ward had mentioned something about November,
Specifically, I made a motion to affirm the tentative November schedule.
okay, that's the words I wanted to hear. Okay. I just wanna make sure I have it, and as a point of order, we have a motion and a second. Mrs. Mast suggests not to vote. The only way that could happen, Mr. Ward would have to pull the motion, so. Just a little parliamentary procedure we follow. I wanna make sure.
Could ask for the table.
But once we have a motion and a second on the floor, the motion has to be pulled before you can table it.
And then, kind of a longer term procedurally, if Governor Wine comes out tonight and says something, then we would probably have to have a special meeting to pass another resolution, really undoing it, if we do this tonight.
Well,
if he comes out with a mandate saying we're not allowed to be in class, then we would have to have a special meeting.
But it's one of those things where, just like we had Ohio Revised Code, you can't you can pass whatever motion you want, you can't violate Ohio Revised Code.
So we wouldn't be a special meeting.
We could have a special meeting March 16th.
I just don't remember March 16th.
I know,
Okay.
just can't.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So this
He
motion,
comes out with something that
we vote
strong.
on it, let's say we vote to affirm or approve this, it's subject to so many things. The governor, the State Department of Education, our next meeting, we could undo it. Another special meeting that may be required because the whole world changes again in 3 weeks. This, I think, all we're doing is giving our leadership team direction for now, subject to the whole world changing again in a couple of weeks. That's how I see it.
All right. Call the roll.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Mr. Slocum?
Yes.
Mrs. Mast?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Green?
Yes. Okay, we've got some direction.
We'll start communicating tomorrow.
Okay.
As usually is with the PD committee is working on a PD schedule, so.
Before we adjourn, can I interject two
Sure.
things real quick? Those who are in attendance, if you would, I got a sheet, if you just sign your name on it so I can record the attendance. I should have said that earlier, my apologies on that. This is live stream on YouTube. I would request, if we want to do this as an ongoing thing, that probably at the next meeting, we pass a resolution do so, then we'll have to figure out how to get the resources to do it.
Okay.
Okay, I don't wanna follow the will of the board, and, so that's probably look at explicit directions.
Well, and especially if people don't wanna come out in a small room or whatever, that gives them access to our board meetings, and I like that, so.
We just have to figure out technology-wise. I did this kinda on the rough here, and I like doing the techie stuff, but in a regular busy meeting, I'm not gonna be able to manage all of it probably.
Well, thank you for setting that up today. Jody, thank you for the suggestion.